In a minute. Just waiting for this to go red. Or green, yeah, okay. So we're live now. Okay, hello everybody. It's Kevin here, and we're here with another edition of Eco Chats with Impossible Finance today. And we have Calvin Chu here. I just want to make sure sounds good and everything. I'm on a bit of a crappy connection, so again, there might be a bit of lag to my voice and mouth, so apologize for that. But anyways, I think we're good and the sound is all good. So let's get going. So yeah, here we are again with the Elrond Eco Chats. This is our third one, and we're really happy to have Impossible Finance, like I said. So I'm just going to toss over here to Calvin Chu, who's a builder over there, and he's just going to give us a bit of breakdown of who he is, Impossible Finance, and then we'll get straight into the questions.
Cool. Hey everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? I see there's the live chat there, so just always paranoid about technical difficulties. Awesome. Great. Yeah. So super great to meet everyone here. Thanks, Kevin, for having me. It's been an awesome kind of journey to see the Elrond ecosystem grow. As a bit of background, I previously was on the research team at Binance. So had the awesome opportunity of being able to see Elrond from a pre-launch stage all the way to its Binance Launchpad, as well as obviously all of the amazing things that it's rolled out, whether it's the mainnet, staking, all these awesome things since then. I also led Binance staking in 2019 and part of 2020. So I had the pleasure of also supporting Elrond staking at Binance as well. So really awesome to see everything come full circle. And now at Impossible Finance, we're focused on building a decentralized incubator, launchpad, and swap to hopefully find the next generation of projects and launchpad opportunities that may be built on some of your favorite chains, such as Elrond.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't know that you worked at Binance and you're the head of Binance staking. So that's awesome. You got a pretty good background there for all of this. That's great. And it's great to have you with Elrond and now out on your own or with Impossible Finance doing some great things. So yeah, so we have a bunch of questions coming at you. To everyone out there in the chat, we'll get to your questions after we kind of get through these. Yeah, we'll just get going. So the first question I have is, can you explain what the main features of Impossible Finance are and how are they related to each other?
Yeah, so I guess I did mention earlier, so Impossible is a decentralized incubator, launchpad, and swap. And for us, it's really about how, project teams, they don't launch, just with a snap of a finger and everything's done, right? Everything does need to take time. And so that's part of the reason why we don't want to focus on just being necessarily an exchange or just a launchpad or just an incubator. We want to be something that can touch and support project teams across their journey as they grow. And that's part of the reason why there's these types of three arms of Impossible. Our kind of core bread and butter is obviously working very closely with early stage project teams. And given our kind of due diligence and research background, we're very interested in a lot of the investment theses that users have and want to make sure that there's real, fair, and accessible opportunities for individuals to participate in these launch pads. So for us, it starts with this type of incubation, and hopefully with the maturity of the projects, we're able to go ahead and launch them to the public via our Impossible platform, and then obviously help them get set up with liquidity pools and venues to trade these assets in the secondary markets.
Yeah, I think that's really unique that you're not just one of these launch pads that just say, yeah, we'll do it for you, and then you just stop helping them, right? And I think it's really unique that you have that trifecta there as well, because you're able to help projects get to where they are and where they need to be, and you just don't leave them alone. And I was actually also reading, you don't have any hoops that you want to put people through to get into these initial launchpad sales. One of the big things out there is, you got to tweet so many times, you got to add so many friends just to get a small minimal sale. So I think that's really cool. So I think that kind of relates to your dual token model and what each token does. So maybe could you explain your dual token model and what each token does?
Yeah, so we have two tokens. One is called IF for Impossible Finance, of course, and then the other one is called IDIA, which stands for Impossible Decentralized Incubator Access. And so the two kind of core functions of these tokens are split into, I'd say generally the launchpad side of things and the swap side of things. That if you want kind of fee discounts or some of the benefits that you've seen from other exchange tokens, that's what IF as a token is designed to do. As well as some other general kind of broader governance, as well as obviously a lot of people are familiar with the staking or launchpad kind of structures, and those features are all embedded inside the IDIA token. And part of the reason why we did choose to have two tokens here is that some of the largest traders or people that would really benefit from these fee discounts are not necessarily the same teams that actually participate in launchpads. They're oftentimes different folks, right? You might have a high frequency trading team that cares about the fee discounts and VIP tiers of an exchange, and you might have a retail user and individual from the community that's actually fighting for these launchpads. And we don't want the big guy to have too much of a say. We want it to be a fair platform that actually ultimately helps decentralize these projects that we launch and actually gets these tokens into the hands of real users like you. So that's part of the reason why, while it's a little more complex, right, every time we have to do and answer this question of why two tokens, but we do think it's a very important trade-off to make sure that we can best design our ecosystem to protect our users.
Yeah, and I think that's a really fair point and really novel of you guys, because there's definitely higher end investors who don't really even really care about the launch pads as much, and and I think by spreading it out and giving a fair distribution and allowing different types of people to interact in with Impossible, you're actually creating a nice little ecosystem there. And then of course, I mean, with plugging in with Elrond and stuff, which is kind of the same ethos, there's kind of a perfect match there. It's being able to put financial freedom into the hands of all types of users, and your dual token model seems to be a good way at achieving that. So that's great. So there's a lot of people out there just asking what the maximum supply of Impossible Finance is. So
so the two tokens have two different total supplies. So IF has, I think, a total supply max cap of 21 million, just like Bitcoin. And then IDIA has a total max cap of 1 billion. However, IDIA is, I believe, only about 4% circulated, so it should be somewhere around the 40 million current circulating market cap, circulating supply. And IF is also, for the most part, circulating, but I believe something like 20% or so is currently held inside treasuries, so they are not on the open market. Yep.
Yeah, cool. And then there's a lot of questions out there about just staking and liquidity pools. So what staking do you currently offer, or do you plan to offer? And then the follow-up question to that would be, will you be providing liquidity LP coin staking as well?
Yeah, so great question here. First off, we actually just announced our first external team that we have incubated for our launchpad. It's called OpenSwap, and you can check out their product at openswap.xyz. They are a DEX aggregator and liquidity product that really helps make the DeFi trading experience a lot more powerful. And so we're really excited to be able to launch them. And so that will mean that our first opportunity to stake IDIA to earn allocation in this launchpad will start on Thursday. So users still have a couple more days to do more research and learn more about all of the kind of processes and flows for our Launchpad, as well as the project itself, OpenSwap. And outside of that, we also have an active Pancake liquidity pool for our IF token for those interested in our swap, such that they can partake in earning some cake yield for providing liquidity to the IF/BUSD pair. And then we also have some liquidity rewards on OpenSwap itself to, again, dog food and protect and help grow some of the kind of user metrics for some of our incubated projects. And so we actually are doing a fixed term staking product for users that provide liquidity on our own swap over on OpenSwap to help kind of drive some of the kind of win-win of a user base over to their ecosystem as well.
That's awesome. So it sounds like there's a lot of option for if holders and IDIA holders and stuff like that to earn some good yields and also have some cross integrations with things like OpenSwap. You said they're on Cake as well, so that's really awesome. Can you offer a bit more insight on how the IDIA investment scheme works and what the main advantages of that are?
Yeah, so at its core, we thought launches as something that should be what we call smart launches. We want these tokens that are offered in these launch pads to go into the hands of real users and participants that will actually stick around in the ecosystem, just like you guys have stuck around in the Elrond ecosystem. And I think that's something really, really important, that the Launchpad is your first step in launching a project in public, that it needs to be a good, put your best foot forward kind of thing, right? And if we, offer tokens to folks that don't really even know what you do or what your kind of main focus is, that's not going to be a very attentive or sticky audience that, stays engaged with you in the long run. So what we really kind of pride ourselves on is building out what we call these staking tracks or sector-based staking. The idea is that, maybe Kevin, you love, super scalable layer twos, right? Given your experience with Elrond. And that's something really important for a lot of these kind of, I think, dApps in the future that, the cheap gas fees and good UX from something like Elrond is really important for bringing on the next wave of folks into crypto. And so maybe that's your thesis, right? And so if you wanted to participate in investments of the next picks that are built on top of an Elrond or solve similar kind of use cases, right? That's something where you can kind of signal that into the specific sector of projects that you're interested in. So maybe I love NFTs and you don't, then you don't have to stake in my track and I don't have to stake in your track. We all kind of focus on the sectors that we're most interested in. And that hopefully means in the long run, we all get actually more allocations into the projects and sectors that we actually like. And we're not so much fighting against each other to crowd each other out for these opportunities.
That's actually really cool. So what you're doing is kind of like a niche or niche, whichever way you say it, based investment platform, right? So like, yeah, so for me, I'm big into NFTs or that sort of thing, right? So I'd love to just go and support the NFT stuff, and that way I'm not bleeding over to say some of the layer 2 stuff, right? And so my money is being used more. That gives more allocation to those who want to be in that, and I'm just not throwing money at a project because I can, right? Because like one of the biggest problem with launch pads out there, people are just kind of like, well, yeah, I'm just going to throw money at all of them, but really you don't understand half of what these guys are doing because it's not your area. So I think that's actually really, really strong. And as an investment community as a whole, it's gonna pay dividends because we'll be able to invest more in what we know, and we'll be able to bring more value to that project through maybe our Twitters, or we'll talk about it more. So yeah, that's actually a really, really, really cool feature. There's a question here. People are wondering. So you're going to do ESDT pairs for a lot of your projects, correct? But will you also be doing things like Uniswap, Pancake Swap for people, and all that sort of stuff? So more than just ESDT pairs, Elrond pairs is a question.
Yeah, we're very open-minded, and our code is pretty scalable and open, such that we can adapt for these different types of use cases. So it's something that we're continuing to speak with the Elrond team, and just trying to figure out all of the kind of tricks as we get more and more prepared for our eventual rollout of our products. So yeah, it's been a great iterative process so far, and it's something that we'll continue chipping away at over time.
Yeah, and I think it's really great that you guys have came over to Elron and joined forces like this, because like everything you're doing and just what you're from telling me now and actually being able to talk to you, I can tell that you guys have the user at heart and you have financial inclusion at heart. And so being able to bring those tokens over into the Myar app and Dex, is just awesome. So like we're gonna get more that way and more coverage. And also, I mean, these guys will be on the fastest, most secure blockchain and scalable blockchain out there, in my humble opinion, and that's fact, by the way, everyone. But yeah. So yeah, so there's a few questions then around just this business to developer stuff. So your Launchpad has a unique business to developer, and a sustaining IDO model. So they just want to know how that works and if you can explain that a bit more. The business to developer incubator.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of parts of that. So I might need you to unpack that one a little bit into a couple parts so I can chip away at that. But I think it's a really great question.
Oh, so you want me to break that up?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what's business to developer?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so B2D for sure is maybe a newer concept, but what we really think is that in this type of DeFi world, developers are really important for the quality and the innovation that happens in this space, right? We were able to see Benjamin and a lot of the folks on the core Elrond team from early on start to think about these types of UX problems in Ethereum back then, and trying to figure out how to make these kind of networks much more scalable for people to use. And that's something that is actually a very B2D use case, that you're saying that, oh, developers don't want to pay 200 ETH to deploy a smart contract on Ethereum. That solves a use case, right? And that's something where for us, a lot of what we do is we want to be very product and technical first, to support a lot of the folks that want to build great things and create these ecosystems on a Web3 or decentralized world. And so that's part of the reason why our Launchpad, for better or for worse, hasn't done many AMAs like this, or any kind of video chats. We've been heads down building a lot of more technical work, and we think that it's really rewarding in the long run to be able to support a lot of these very technical first teams, because we know that it's no frills and just all business, right? That we want to make sure that these projects are the highest quality for users to invest in on our Launchpad. And so we want to have the smart innovators of the world do what they do best, and let us handle a lot of the kind of mundane but sometimes really important things that the talented developers of the world don't want to think about.
Yeah, and this is basically what you guys mean by self-sustaining IDOs, where you're giving money to builders, and we all know Elrond's all about builders, and obviously you are as well. So again, there's that synergy, and yeah, I think you're right. I think the one thing that draws a lot of people over to Elrond is the fact that they're always building, and we're not so much hype. The community, we're out there hyping and always pushing their own drum, but the team themselves are always working and building and pushing the limits, and that's why they succeed. And any project that focuses on implementation instead of just hyping up all the time, then yeah, they're going to succeed. So I think that's great that this is happening, and that you guys are taking that self-sustaining approach, because I mean, you wouldn't really want to be funding a company that says, well, we don't have the developers yet, but we have the idea, right? So like,
Exactly.
who wants to
Yeah.
give money to a guy who says, well, we'll find the developers after? So it's probably better, yeah, that if you're dealing right to that developer line, and the developers see the money without a bunch of little hands coming in there, then you're going to get a much better project. And with a community like yours and ours together, I'm sure will be incubating a lot of really good projects to in the future. And yeah, you have your second official one that just launched today, correct? I think I saw on your Medium that today there's a second one there. So that's great. So you're already two in. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely breathtaking sometimes, and also very intensive work. But it's something that is really rewarding when you see, a project like OpenSwap. We have worked with them for not quite a year now, but getting close, and it's something where we got to see them kind of grow in this kind of builder journey, and that's something that I think anytime you see something kind of graduate to the big stage, if you will, is something that is pretty, exciting.
Yeah, and I think everyone out there can kind of has an experience of where they worked really hard to achieve something, and then you saw on the other end what the actual results were. So yeah, that's great, and the fact that you're kind of spending a year or so with these guys and working together to get them to this point is incredible. I think that's definitely a unique selling point. There's a question here. Can you offer more details regarding the priority access to deal flow and allocation?
hmm Yeah, so I think sometimes we speak in a little bit too fancy jargon. I think the straightforward part of it is that we do want to make sure that some of these great deals and opportunities that typically only get passed around to VCs and exclusive opportunities, we want those to be something that the real users and participants of ecosystems, they should own these networks, right? I don't think it makes sense to only sell tokens to, like five or six big names and then expect you to have a really decentralized product, right? So if we really do want to have these decentralized ecosystems, I think it's really important to build from the ground up, and that our token IDIA is the core way for us to give access to a lot of the opportunities and deals that we'd say are these types of high quality launch pads so that everyone can participate.
Awesome. And then what about like curating projects, right? So the other thing, and you've kind of touched on this, right? And you said you guys will only choose builders and stuff, but maybe we'll just get into it a bit more. Can you just give us a bit of an idea of the process and maybe a bit more of a response on the actual criteria that you look for when curating?
Yeah, so I think every project it comes on a case by case basis. So at Binance, I helped kind of create some of the listing framework and did a lot of the due diligence for the research questions that we asked. But at the same time, I think nothing is ever a one size fits all. Every project comes in at a different stage, and so that's also part of the reason why we have our incubator as well. We don't like to flat out reject project teams or just kind of ignore people. We'd much rather say, how can we help? And maybe if you're not quite there yet, how can we help you get there, right? And that's part of the reason why when we say, like, in terms of a criteria perspective, what we really care about is this something really solving a use case that even ourselves or other folks that we could see in the space, need, and then just go from there. If it's something that touches on some maybe not so pressing issues, but something that could be very neat. We're also very open-minded to that. We don't have to say like, oh, you need to have certain, user metrics or adoption yet, because we know that some of the best things out there don't necessarily have adoption today. The question is who's going to have adoption tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what us at Binance to pick some of these types of project teams like Axie Infinity, for example, 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, before we really even realized how popular play to earn or NFTs might get. And I think that's where different plays, like whether it be metaverse or so on and so forth, this is why we're really excited to have these different sector queues, because then we can make a lot of benchmarks and research within specific verticals, and then just see, are any of these projects within these verticals interesting or bringing something new to the table within their sector. So they don't need to be necessarily something that's fighting every single project in the world. We just take it one step at a time to understand what they're trying to solve, what they're trying to do, and how we can hopefully help them expand or fulfill that vision.
Yeah, and that's great. And your Binance experience is probably perfect for that, right? As you were saying, and being able to go in and see if they do have a use case or if they are pushing the limit or something new, and or if they're just cookie cutter as well, right? Like, there's some big projects back in 2017, 2018. One of the bigger ones. If you would have looked at their white paper, it was copy and pasted from other ones, right? And that's not to say it was a bad project or whatever, but it there's a lot of plagiarism there. And so I think, as from that Binance experience, you've learned how to fact check things, how to see if people are real, and then you have to obviously find out who people are and all that sort of stuff as well. And I think, speaking as, let's just say, me as a investor to maybe an Impossible Finance, that would make me feel a lot more comfortable. And just knowing this now, gives me a lot of confidence in the process in which the things that you choose. And I mean, obviously the fact that Elrond pointed you out as well, and there's no secret that I'm all about Elrond, and so is everyone here. Obviously, this is the Elrond Partners channel. But those synergies are there, and the fact that I trust their judgment, and after talking with you just this little bit, I'm starting to trust a lot more about Impossible Finance as well. Not that I didn't before, but now just this stuff about Binance and how you actually been part of it on a bigger scale, and you were probably maybe even part of the Elrond IEO, and that sort of stuff. I don't know. So that's really awesome. So there is another question here just about personal data and all that stuff and privacy. And so people are just wondering, like, someone's saying, how do we know your funds are secure? And then also, more importantly, the users data. So the people who use your Launchpad and all that sort of stuff. How do we know, and what assurances do we have?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things across all types of assurance, right? You have smart contract risks and other kind of vulnerabilities that could happen in DeFi, and that's obviously something that is, top of mind. So we ourselves have already been audited by multiple teams, and it's something that we don't take lightly. We did spend a lot of time with our auditors, and as well as peer reviewers that we have a lot of faith and experience in working alongside. And then outside of that, we're also working heavily with a lot of decentralized insurance protocols to make sure that there's some third-party platforms in which users can purchase coverage if they so choose, to make sure that their funds have some safety nets, right? And then the last part is that we also have a Seifu fund, similar to how Binance does it, in that if something goes wrong, we are going to do our best to try and support in whatever way possible. And so we actually did suffer a flash loan exploit back in June. But fortunately, with the coverage of this pool, we made all users whole right away, and basically were able to rectify the situation so that no end users were affected by the exploit. So that's something that obviously, it's not beautiful to have things like that happen, and no journey is ever super easy or perfect, but it is something where we want to make sure that we have as many kind of safety measures in place to make sure that this is a platform where you feel comfortable putting your money, your family feel comfortable putting money in. That's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, I think like treasuries and all that sort of stuff are really important. I myself, I'm a partner. My company is a partner of Elrond as well, and we have a little kind of treasury fund that we build, and we just put e-gold away every month, and then we build it up so that given anything could happen, we have a little bit of extra there to kind of ensure the longevity of both our infrastructure and our users, should anything happen. I don't believe it will, but you never know. This is the world we're in. There's a question for me now, just on that security stuff. How do you feel about time locks? So there's a lot of these smart contracts have 24-hour time locks, 48-hour time locks, and like that's one of the keys to kind of stopping flash loan attacks and various attacks. And I'm just wondering how you feel about those.
Yeah, so I think time locks, when necessary, are actually quite helpful. But they're also something that are a little bit of from an econ perspective, a little bit of what we call a dead weight loss. It's that if you're forcing somebody to hold for a certain period of time, they may not actually take the action that is maybe best for the community. So we see this sometimes with private sale investors that dump right away when unlocks happen. Unfortunately, knowing that there's a looming sale or a looming unlock 48 hours from now affects whether or not people want to purchase today, because they're like, oh, maybe somebody else is actually going to sell on me now 2 days later, so I'll just wait to go buy. And what happens is that in reality, everyone gets busy. There's so many things that happen in DeFi or in the rest of the world. Things happen with your families or other stuff outside of your normal day stuff, and then 2 days later you forget to go and buy the token when you said that you might buy the token after the unlock. And so what this essentially means is that because you're forcing some folks to do something within a certain time range or not to do something within a time range, it doesn't allow for all the market forces for folks that maybe wanted to sell now and just can kind of get out of the way. You can kind of move on and essentially break up from them in a community sense. If they don't believe in your token or your value proposition, you're kind of stuck with them for a longer period of time. And on the flip side, you might actually prevent yourself from being able to bring in new eyeballs and attention in your economy and your ecosystem. So it is something where it's a dual-edged sword sometimes. I think that for some anonymous teams or for projects that want to kind of align themselves with something that makes sure that they hit these different KPIs or metrics in growing their project, that's where I think some of these types of not necessarily time-based locks, but incentive or milestone-driven unlocks are, I think, very interesting. But the maybe time locks sometimes can be a little bit artificial and may not always be beneficial in every single case.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. It is these double-edged swords, and I'm a big fan of vesting and slowly allowing tokens to be released to the early people. But I'm also not really a huge fan of airdrop days either, right? There's a lot of out there who just say, okay, we're airdropping today, and then if they're airdropping for 7 weeks in a row, you have these big airdrops, and everyone's trading then to those airdrops, and you're not getting the true econ value. You're actually just airdrop trading. And I think there's a lot of ways around that with vesting, and like how Elrond's planning to do it is more in a vesting way and that sort of stuff. And I think given the right process, it has many advantages, and then of course the disadvantages, but I think you can mitigate those disadvantages as well. So just get into Elrond and just ask you a few questions about why you chose Elrond and that sort of stuff, and let's get everyone excited. Not that they're not already, but let's just get into the Elrond stuff. So what is the advantage between the Impossible partnership with Elrond Network?
Yeah, so I think in general, Impossible is very bullish on all multi-chain ecosystems, and we've obviously been very excited with, the excitement around all of the participants in the Elrond side of things, but that for us, unfortunately, our core team is still getting up to speed on some Rust stuff, and that was a kind of key barrier for us to participate in some of these other protocols and blockchains. And thankfully, with a lot of the support from the Elrond core team, as well as many of the kind of community contributors, that it was a really warm kind of welcome mat for us to kind of come and visit, and it's something that we do want to spend more time on. I also don't want to overpromise personally as well. So that we're still in progress with a lot of the things that we want to be able to do. But I do, think that based on how excited everyone has been so far in the entire Elrond ecosystem, it is something that we think will be a very fruitful kind of spend of our time moving forward. And it's something that we do want to see more cross collaborations with what Elrond itself is doing. Obviously with the Meyer product suite, right? There's many different pieces of that larger puzzle, and we think that we can be a very helpful complementary product alongside the entire Elrond ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think we all think that too. And the community's pretty pumped for all this and having more launch pads and having those coins come into to Myar and stuff and just building out those transactions and bringing in new projects and stuff. And it's great. And so how impactful do you think this partnership will be for new developers to build on this business model?
Yeah, so I think especially because a lot of the builders that we've met, Rust isn't a super easy language. A lot of these developers that might be coming over to, come over to DeFi or crypto, oftentimes might come from other very technical language backgrounds or very traditional tech or finance kind of jobs. And it's maybe something that they've never really thought about how to launch a project or build something in a longer term ecosystem. And that's something that we feel really good at, given our experience and our position within the space to really help some of these builders kind of do that. So, we want to see if, we can help and many more projects successfully launch. We really unlock the ability of, as you mentioned, the B2D concept earlier. We really do want to unlock the potential of these developers that come to the Elrond ecosystem and let them kind of focus on building awesome products for the world, and we can hopefully help handle some of the rest.
Yeah, so just on that Rust topic, right? Like right now, Rust is the go-to language, but the engine technically you can use Python. You can use almost any language, right? Right now, Rust is the go-to, and yeah, it's pretty complicated, and like I've managed to be I can manipulate some of the Rust in some things, but yeah, like starting from scratch and stuff. And so you were saying that you've been in the developers community with Elrond, and you said it was pretty easy to work with. Do you have any insight to how well or how easy it is to work with Elrond, a developer community, versus say other coins?
I just think the people have been just super helpful, and I think that's the most important thing. You'll never always have every answer. If we are all just robots, then the only thing that matters is how scalable the blockchain is and how complete the documentation is, right? But in reality, you always run into bugs, you always run into other things, and it's just been really a supportive group of folks to have ready to ping on Telegram when we need. So yeah, I'd say that'd be the key thing that we've been really happy about.
And that's awesome to hear, because I had another developer. We had a Ryan Dietz who's doing this AeroVec thing for Elrond, and his was the same answer. He had built on a few other of the big chains, and if he had problems, it was almost impossible to find help. He'd go into forums looking for help, and then you'd have 10 different answers. Some guys who might or women just don't know what they're doing. And he said, yeah, I was just going into that developers group, ping a message, and you get an answer from either the team itself or some of the SP developer guys who are in there. And so it's great to hear the same feedback from you. And I say this a lot, but if there's any developer watching this now, just go join that developers group for Elrond and see for yourself. Okay, so another question: Will we get access to NFTs on Elrond?
Yeah, so I think this is something that we're very interested in. While we're not necessarily focused on selling NFTs themselves, we are very interested in a lot of infrastructure plays, especially in, let's say, multi-chain wallets or other products that create metaverses that can bridge over to Elrond. So we'll actually hopefully send over a few more interesting project teams that we've seen lately over to the Elrond team to take a closer look. And this is something that we do think that in the future we'll be able to bring over even more projects that are doing some really incredible stuff to tap into some of the scalability that Elrond offers.
Yeah, that's awesome. And with the Launchpad and Swap and just Elrond builders, are you going to be focusing on any specific kind of project, or is any project kind of a go?
Yeah, we are sector agnostic. We obviously do think that there are certain sectors that are getting a lot more attention than others. Like obviously NFTs of late has been obviously very hot. So that's something that will drive some of our decision in the prioritization or ordering of which projects go first now or later. But in general, we are very bullish on all things infrastructure related within these different sectors. So as you can see with our first launchpad being OpenSwap in the DEX space, that we think that they can be a core piece of DEX infrastructure across many chains. And that each of our different projects, we don't necessarily want to only pick things that have super high potential. We want things that have a mix of things that are ready to use today and this potential in the future as well. That's the same thesis that brought us to Elrond in the first place. I remember Benjamin, when he first reached out to us, had built a fork of Brave browser, which was forked from Google Chrome, and he'd shown us how that earliest version of Meyer and other stuff was built into something that we use every day in browsers. And that was an incredible, simple use case of blockchain technology that showcased the scalability of what Elrond was doing at that point in time. But it was something that any person that has used the internet browser in the last 4 hours, they'd be able to resonate and understand that use case. And the higher upside of that in the long run was building something that is this exciting, scalable, programmable blockchain, right? But that touch point for that end user, that's something that we look for in a lot of our projects, and that oftentimes it's the infrastructure plays like this that have something both short and long term for users to enjoy now as well as look forward to in the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think touching on that infrastructure piece, right? And what a lot of people kind of don't realize is a lot of the Web 3.0 and new blockchain stuff still relies on some of the old infrastructure things, especially with, content delivery networks, cloud computing, and various other things. And there's a lot of great projects out there that are just starting to get out there that are, focusing on looking for a way to use the blockchain and content delivery network, right? And so you don't have to be so dependent on an Amazon now anymore, or cloud computing decentralization, and all that sort of stuff. But then, like you were saying, it's the simple use cases as well, things that are staring at us right in the face all day long. And people hear the word blockchain or crypto, and a lot of people's eyes just don't know what you're talking about anymore, and everyone's always trying to do something that's the next complication. But you're right. Elrond said, well, we can do all the things that are already out there and just make them better, right? And yeah, they might be simple, but the user experience is going to improve, the value is there, and the infrastructure is there as well. And you combine all that, then there's so many ideas out there, and there's people out there who are just applying ideas that already exist, but to blockchain today, and not trying to reinvent the wheel. So I think having the mix there is really good, especially as an investor. I'd like to know, okay, yeah, this is another NFT platform, but the USP is great, and they have a decent user base already. I'll invest in that. But then I want to see something. Okay, well, no one's really made a really strong decentralized API yet, or decentralized load balancers, or all this infrastructure stuff that might benefit the Web 3.0 Internet of today, tomorrow type thing. So that's absolutely incredible. We have another question. We have a question here from the chat, and it's just, what role will Impossible Finance play in the growth curve to Elrond? So users and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think launchpads are actually great onboarding things because they get people excited about the opportunity to invest, and then they get deeper down the rabbit hole of everything that underlies this technology, right? That's what happened for us when we were doing these launchpads such as Elrond, and something that we do think in the future, the future products that get built on Elrond will also have a similar type of effect, that there will be brand new eyeballs that have never really paid attention to Elrond maybe, that this will give them an excuse to take a look and hopefully find things that they're really excited to stick around for.
Yeah, and increase transactions as well into our chain and all that good stuff, and bring more users. And that's great. Okay, so I'm just gonna first off, I'm just gonna say out to the chat, anybody who wants any questions, now's your time to fire them in there. We've covered a lot, so if we've already answered it, I won't ask it. But if you do want to ask a question, ask now. In that time, I've got a question. So why'd you name it? Why is it named Impossible?
Yeah, great question. I think there's two pieces of this. The first is that we think that this kind of launchpad space is something that often has a hard trade-off between trying to do things that are fair for users and things that are accessible for users. There are a lot of things that are fair out there, like let's say if you have to wait in line for something that's super hard to get, it might be fair, right? If you got there earlier, everyone understands why you deserved getting something because you were at the front of the line or not. But that it might not actually be accessible if the most of the people are standing in this line all the way around the block, right? And have no chance at getting in before, let's say, the shop closes, right? And then you also have things that are accessible, but only to a certain kind of demographic of folks or certain backgrounds. And so this is how a lot of traditional VC investments tend to be, right? So you have a lot of things where just a select group of people get access to things and not everyone. And so trying to find something that's both fair and accessible is not easy. You have a lot of other launch pads that, as you alluded to, make you jump through a lot of hoops, and most likely those hoops is actually easier for bots to jump over those hoops than you are. And that's something that isn't a level playing field for the user, right? So for us, we just want to make sure that we can do as much as we can in creating this type of impossibly fair kind of launch and support projects in as many different ways as we can.
Yeah, that's great. That makes total sense. I kind of thought that in the back of my head that maybe that's what it was, but yeah, like the access to VCs, and I think you even see in that The Big Short, the movie The Big Short, they talk about how they couldn't even access those swaps and blue chips because they weren't part of that crew. So they had to reach out to some guy, I think it was Brad Pitt played him, and then they connected him in just so that they could actually even make that play. And so, how many people were out there with a couple $100 or who might have been able to access that, but because of the, they call it the boys club, but or I guess the boys and girls club, they just don't let people in. They close the door to the clubhouse, and they all make money off of these, new exciting things, but they're just telling you, oh, don't worry, just put your money in our nice 13-15% a year fund. Meanwhile, on the back end, they're not telling you or putting your money into these new exciting investments, and they close the door on you. So it is a bit impossible in traditional finance unless you know the right people or you have enough money to even get involved with stuff. So yeah, that's a great explanation to why it's called impossible. So just one more question. I don't think we have too many from the chat. We've gone through a lot, and a lot of these came from Twitter and everything anyways. So I think a lot of people's questions have been answered. But anyways, so we do have another question here from Carolina. Anyways, it's so clearly you can't tell us exactly about upcoming launchpad projects, but do you have much interest at the moment? And is there anything bridging the gap between crypto and the traditional investments? So yeah, I think the question there is there something out there where you guys are researching that you'll be actually bridging between, traditional and DeFi?
Yeah, so I think this is something where we're still exploring a lot of different ways to support new projects and new opportunities. We definitely don't want to close the door on anything, but we do think our bread and butter and our specialty is to focus on more crypto native experiences. Maybe NFTs is already a little bit more intersecting the art world with the digital world, but we do think that there are a lot of interesting plays here. And we think that, like I said earlier, we have a very sector agnostic approach. So we will support projects across many different spectrums. We just think that, there are a lot of projects with real world experience and a lot of traditional stuff. But that crypto is sometimes a unique beast of its own. And we think that sometimes it's better for us to actually focus on, opportunities within the crypto native world, rather than trying to spend a lot of time in trying to translate something from the traditional world over into crypto. That being said, there are some finance concepts, whether it's more advanced trading or let's say financial products that people in the traditional world are more interested in, whether that be synthetic assets or derivatives, so on and so forth. This is something that, given our exchange experience, is also something that we're very comfortable with. And so in those cases, we're very happy to work alongside project teams that are building interest rate swaps or other more technical finance concepts into the crypto world. That's something that we are also, pretty excited to support.
Yeah, because like that next big wave, a lot of people think options are going to be huge, right? And option trading is kind of out there. There's people doing it, but it's not as big as it could be yet. And we had the futures stuff that came, well, maybe 2-3 years ago, and then now option trading starting to show up as well, and all these different financial suites. But you're right to focus on DeFi first. Yeah, I do think in the future having those gaps between traditional and DeFi are going to be the projects that either win or have the best advantage, because at the end of the day, traditional investors are still going to want the security and insurance of traditional finance. Okay, so we have another one. Why would a project come to you versus other established launch pads?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's something that we already saw with our first launch. We actually had over 2,500 KYC participants, and there are a lot of awesome platforms out there that we don't like to speak negatively of any other teams. We do think that DeFi is really amazing, and that we can be building alongside a lot of great other project teams. We don't need to belittle other people to make ourselves better. We actually think that a lot of project teams should launch with us as well as with other project teams simultaneously to get even larger reaches. So we're very open to non-exclusive launches as well. But that, in particular, what we're really excited about is this type of curated launch that we can help you target, specific user bases or people, like you said, that really care about, say, the NFT sector. And that's something that is a feature that maybe some other launch pads don't quite have yet. And obviously, we also really do think that we provide a lot of support in the long run for the project teams beyond just the sale itself. We call it scale, not sale. A lot of things out there are sale platforms, not launch pads. Mm-hmm. And in order to really be a launch pad, you don't just need the launch pad, you need the boosters on the rocket, right? And we want to be something that's there every step of the way, both pre and post launch. So that's probably our kind of core differentiation kind of parts, and that's something that we really enjoy doing to help build these product teams up.
Yeah, and from the outside looking in, I can tell you that you're different. You're different by providing fair allocations and a fair system with the dual tokens that we talked about earlier. And you're also picking projects that are building. You're not just taking any project that comes in, and you're not a sale pad essentially, where you're actually not getting the launch pad price. You're getting maybe another 20% above what the actual investment price was, and you might. And you don't have to post on Twitter 20 times. You don't have to do all these hoops just to get $250 worth or $100 worth of this token that's already inflated from its original private sale. Right. And so it makes sense to have there's the private investors price where guys are putting in $1 million at a time or whatever, but they're not usually that much difference between the launch pad. But some of these ones, you see, you can buy it 2-3x the price that the launchpad people bought it for, and it's just kind of like, that's not a launch pad, and then they just disappear on that team. So I think you have a lot of unique selling positions there. So we'll just take one more question and then we'll close out. Just how would someone participate in Impossible Finance?
Yeah. You can just hop over to our website at impossible.finance, and you can use any of your favorite Web3 wallets, whether it's MetaMask, Trust Wallet, so on and so forth, and just connect to the website and browse around. I think that it's super straightforward. And if you run into kind of issues with our product, let us know anytime. Feel free to ping us on our social media channels on Twitter or Telegram. I believe our Telegram is just our full Impossible Finance name, and the Twitter handle is ImpossibleFi. So feel free to find us, on whatever platform you feel the most comfortable with, and we want to support you every step of the way in becoming an Impossible Finance participant.
Yeah, awesome. And eventually, obviously, Meyer Connect will be there as well, and you'll be able to connect through Meyer. Okay, so I think we'll just end there. There's a question there about just staking liquidity and all that, but we answered that earlier on. And so if anyone missed the beginning of this, we've answered a lot of these questions. And there's some stuff. Someone was asking about dual tokens again, and we answered that the reason for that is to allow fair distribution and fair allocation between different types of people. And then, yeah, there will be staking and liquidity. There already is on Cake, for example, Pancake and OpenSwap, and natively as well. You will. So yeah, that's great. So just to round up, I just want to say thanks for everyone for coming, and Calvin, thank you for coming on and taking this time with the Elrond network and the Elrond partners community. We're all very, very, very happy to have you guys on board, and it was great listening to you talk today and actually get a face to the name. I think you've been doing a lot of AMAs, but actually having one with your face and your voice and being able to have this conversation, I think has been yeah, it's next level. So yeah, and again, we can't wait to see what comes and those transactions coming into Meyer and those ESDT pairs and all that stuff, and from a personal note, I look forward to getting involved in some of your investments and finding some of the launchpad things and finding those ones that I like and not having to go in every one in order to be in them. So thank you for that. That's great. I really like your guys' concept and everything. So I'll just let you say goodbye and say your own piece, and then we'll end there.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate all the audience that has stuck around, and yeah, come find us in any social media out there. We're happy to be here to help, and hopefully we'll be a familiar face moving forward to help support more of the Elrond community.
Okay, so thanks, Calvin, and again, thank you to everyone for here who's came and watched today. And if we didn't get to your question or you missed the beginning, this will be live on the Elrond Partners channel, and you'll be able to go back and your question will be most likely